For years, hockey cards were pretty boring. Now that doesn't mean that they were bad. Actually, some of these classic sets look really good even today, although some sets were clearly better than others. But for years, even the best known hockey cards were pretty boring and predictable. Well, and then a funny thing happened, a thing called the 1990s. Now, technically, the era of doing strange things on sports cards started in the 1980s. So what happened is the baseball card companies started to grow, other companies got the licenses, and because they were all competing, some companies decided to mess around with that old stoic formula to try to get some attention from something flashy. Sometimes it worked, and sometimes it worked a little bit too well. If you know about sports cards, you probably know about this famous Glenn Hubbard 1984 Fleer baseball card, the one with the huge snake. Some of these cards were probably just pranks that the players decided to play on the photographers. Others were probably planned by the card company to try to get at least some attention. And then you've got the most famous unusual card of all, which is Billy Ripken with the famous name Rick Face written on the barrel of his bat. Anyway, after Upper Deck entered the hockey card market in 1990, everything really blew up. And we started to see some companies print some creative cards in order to compete. So without any further ado, here is a list of the 10 strangest hockey cards of all time, and there's no coincidence that all of these come from after 1990. Number 10 has got to be this 2011 Upper Deck Alex Ovechkin card. I'm honestly not sure what the story is behind this card, though I've got to assume that there's a good story here somewhere. That Upper Deck set featured pretty nice photography overall, even though other aspects of the cards were not quite as good. Well, by 2011, for all intents and purposes, the hockey card industry was down to Upper Deck and Panini. Now, both companies had numerous sub-brands, which meant that there was still a whole glut of product out there in the hobby, but there was a little bit less confusion than there had been in the 1990s. Now, for the most part, most of the cards from that era are pretty standard, though that Ovechkin football card really stands out, at least among the cards I've seen. By 2011, we were basically in a kind of second junk wax era, which helps explain why there were over 570 unique Ovechkin cards printed that year alone. That includes these cards with jersey pieces and all that other stuff that I personally have absolutely no interest in. Anyway, Panini alone printed a couple hundred Ovechkin cards, so many that I'm honestly not sure which set was Panini's base set. Though the photography on some of these cards is nice, none are quite as interesting as the football card. It's a good idea, and my only issue with this card is that the back totally sucks. I mean, surely we could have done a better job at card backs than this, right? Anyway, it's a fun card. It makes me wonder who taught Ovi how to throw in American football. And the coolest part is that it's a fun card from an era that is not known for fun cards. Every other card in this list comes from the 1990s, and I don't know what to say about number 9. So, I'm not quite sure what to make of this one. Upper Deck apparently convinced 3 New York Rangers players to pose in the water at the beach, complete with their sticks. That was the front of this star rookie checklist card, which is also kind of confusing. If you take a close look, you'll realize that the players are listed alphabetically, not by number. So, have you ever heard of that? This is the first checklist card that I've seen where the listing is by name, not by number. Like what? Anyway, at least they had some fun with the picture. Upper Deck's checklist cards in that 1991-92 set looked like these. They're pretty boring. I guess it's useful if you're a kid and you actually want to mark off the cards that you own, but people haven't done that for decades. Anyway, Upper Deck had a couple of those special checklist cards in this set, though the Star Rookie checklist is the most notable. This Young Gun checklist card, for example, features Nicholas Lindstrom, and it's kind of boring. Of course, Upper Deck has always been known for doing some pretty creative and sometimes fun and crazy things on its cards, and you're going to see a lot of that company on this list. But sticking the hockey rookies in the ocean, that's a new one. I'll give you that. I haven't seen that one before. And it really stood out in a set that didn't really have a whole lot else going for it. I mean, I guess this White House welcome card featuring Mario Lemieux and George H.W. Bush is something. For the most part, though, checklist cards in the 1991 set featured pretty boring artwork. And even the Star Rookie cards featured on that checklist are kind of lame. Well, except for this Doug Weight card, that is. Anyway, with a set that was extremely mass-produced and is worth nothing today, you take all of the short cards that you can get. But among all the special gimmick cards, the Ocean Rookies card really does stand out. I mean, Upper Deck had to do something to stand out, right? Anyway, keep that idea in mind because, like I said, there's a lot more Upper Deck to come. This next one comes from a set that was dedicated to unusual cards. Next up is this Wendell Clark card from the 1994 Upper Deck Be a Player set. And honestly, the most interesting thing about this card is the tiny dumbbell that he's using. I mean, did he really use this to put on muscle? Now, to be fair, Clark did have a 15-year career, which meant that he had to be in good shape at some point in time. But maybe he would have done better than a career minus 130 if he had used bigger weights. Well, all that kidding aside, that Clark card is an unusual card in a set filled with bizarre cards. The whole purpose of this Be a Player set was apparently to show hockey players doing anything but playing hockey. Now, let's be honest, the actual purpose behind the set was for Upper Deck to sell more lottery tickets at getting an authentic signature card. But it's not like you would know what might be in a pack anyway, since it was deliberately printed to be as illegible as possible. Most of the cards in this set are creative and unusual, and there were some art cards that look really dated. This one just screams 1990s. So when I look back at sets like this one, I get the feeling that Upper Deck wanted to just stick a whole bunch of different stuff out there to see like whatever would stick. Some of the cards look good and others look really ridiculous. For example, this is supposed to be the front of a card. The back looks more like the front. And some of these cards let you see sides of players that you probably didn't want to see. Anyway, you've also got this other Clark card where he's golfing or something. And the back is a handwritten rant about what in the world Toronto was thinking when they traded away their captain. The set has other golfing cards too, so I guess that was the theme. Anyway, in retrospect, I bet that Clark wishes he had chosen a bigger weight to pose with. But like I said, at least it's creative. It's unusual. Now, I don't know why anybody back then bought packs of this set to begin with, but you know, it's creative at least. Anyway, we're going now from an unfortunate decision to a card that is nothing short of bizarre. I mean, here, I don't know what they were thinking. So what do you think is going on here? Is Cleary trying to shave, or is he trying to end his career prematurely? And what kind of national hero is this? So this has got to be one of the strangest cards of all time. Now, if you're younger, you do need to know something, right? The 1990s was like the attitude era of culture in North America. People were all about stuff that was like edgy or whatever. You know, like accidentally cutting your neck with a hockey skate, right? Great idea, bro. In fairness to Cleary, he was a key player of the 1995 Canada Under-18s team and actually had a few cards before this one. If you're lucky, you can find one of these numbered autograph Sprint phone cards from 1995. It's worth like $7. Don't you love how the hobby was spreading in the 1990s? We went from no serialized cards at all to having freaking telephone cards autographed and serial numbered in the space of like 5 years. And these days, players have like 1,000 new cards printed per year, distinguished only by like the border color or something stupid like that. Anyway, Cleary actually had a productive career, though he was never an all-star. Meanwhile, the set that card is from, Collector's Choice, was really Upper Deck's premium product for 1997. And the 1997 Collector's Choice set had other memorable cards like this Judy Diduck National Heroes card. But nothing was quite as unique as seeing Daniel Cleary trying to shave with his skate. And we're only getting warmed up here. Now, I would argue that number 6 on this list is one of the most iconic hockey cards of all time. Well, at least it would be iconic if there wasn't a billion different cards printed every single year. I mean, just look at this card. The timing of this photograph was absolutely perfect. And of course, there's also this parallel version if you want something a little bit more special. Okay, the next time you go to the store and buy any of today's total slop cards, I want you to keep this card in mind. Just remember that you could be spending your money on a card of Ron Tugnut being nailed in the noggin by a puck. It's a thing of beauty. If you remember my long video about the history of OPC, you know that the 1994 premiere set was OPC's last rodeo. OPC was still technically independent, even though Topps basically ran its card-making business for all intents and purposes. In all honesty, the only card worth anything from the 1994 OPC premiere set is the Great One, and even then you're looking at like $1 if you're lucky. No matter how you slice it, this is junk wax, pure and simple. But junk wax is just a lot more fun when you've got a goalie getting whacked in the head by a puck, and I really do wish that we had more cards like this one. Honestly, too many of the other cards from this set are boring and ordinary, and it amazes me that even companies today don't quite realize that the flashy stuff doesn't create demand on its own. If you want a memorable card, try to capture a moment like this. So why don't they make all of their cards like this? Like, are they stupid? Anyway, next up is one of those cards that are artistic for the sake of being artistic. This is the hockey card equivalent of throwing paint at a canvas from across the room and calling it art. Okay, so what would you think if you got a card like this in a pack? I mean, is this even a hockey card? Is the jersey supposed to be on the ground like this? And this is the collector's choice? So like I've been saying, Upper Deck loved being cute throughout the 1990s. This is from the 1998 Upper Deck Choice set, which I think was supposed to be like a premium-ish set for like the discerning collector or whatever. So thanks for spending your money on our cards. Here's a picture of a player who threw his jersey down on the backyard deck. Now, to be fair, there were a lot of unusual camera views and angles in that 1998 Upper Deck Choice set. Assuming that you like this era of hockey, this really is not a bad set with a good variety of card designs and sharp photography. Plus, if it's your thing, you can always get in on some Eric Lindros chest hair action. They were trying to give fans a different angle on the card, so that part I understand. But seriously, you're posting a card of a guy with his jersey on the ground outside? I mean, at some point you do have to wonder if he isn't like disrespecting his team or the game, right? But it is edgy, I'll give you that. Anyway, the box didn't exactly warn you that 5% of the cards or so were experimental photos. And you only got 6 cards per pack, which means that you'd be expecting something at least sort of premium. I mean, what would you think if you paid like $4 for a pack featuring a card where the jersey is on the floor? But it's memorable, that's for sure. I mean, how many other 1998 hockey cards can you think of off the top of your head? As competition increased, the card companies had to do something to stand out, and so they thought of a bunch of these stupid gimmicks. Now, the next gimmick was repeated twice at least. Let me know if you're aware of any other cards like these. The normal 1992 Tom Glavine baseball card was this one, number 75. It's extremely boring and looks like junk, which is classic Pinnacle. If you were lucky though, you got this card instead. Glavine actually looks pretty good in the Braves uniform with those gloves on, but what's going on with his skating? I'll tell you what's going on. He's about to fall down flat on his face. That's what's going on. Now, as you guys know, Glavine was drafted by the Los Angeles Kings back in 1984 and was actually drafted before Brett Hull. However, he decided to play baseball for the Atlanta Braves organization instead. You know, probably because if he was a pitcher, he was less likely to fall flat on his face on the ice. Anyway, that Pinnacle sideline subset featured players doing their hobbies. So you had Orel Hershiser playing golf, and you had John Wetland playing guitar, but the best card was Jim Gott. But it's cheating, of course, for me to include that card here since it's actually a baseball card, or rather it's a baseball player performing martial arts. Anyway, I'll leave it here at Glavine playing hockey, or I would, but there's another similar card that Upper Deck came out with just a few years later. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I would be more likely to watch the NBA if they played it like this. Heck, if hockey players had no pads and had to wear basketball uniforms, I would probably watch more hockey too. Nash, of course, grew up in Canada, though I don't think he played hockey at any professional level. Anyway, I'm sure that there are other wrong sport hockey cards out there as well, like somewhere, but these are at least the two that I know about. Now, next up, we've got one of the most notorious cards of all time, and I seriously cannot believe that Upper Deck actually printed this one. Imagine your grandkids asking you about your hockey career when you're in your 70s. You go pull out your box of memorabilia and you come across this card. Yeah, kids, here I am with an unusually long right arm eating a slice of pizza in the locker room. Like, seriously, what were they thinking? Seriously, why did this photo turn into a hockey card? Was Upper Deck that desperate for something special in 1997? Could they have chosen, a more awkward image? I mean, Greer had an okay career, though he was never really all-star material and was kind of a journeyman. And honestly, his other 1997 Upper Deck cards looked pretty cool. Even the backs looked interesting. But he's always going to be remembered for the pizza eating card, which really is one of a kind. Yeah, that card is always going to be one of a kind. I cannot see these companies doing that one again. Anyway, number 2 on this list is special, and you know what this is if you've seen it before. Okay, back in the mid-1990s, Kraft made a few macaroni and cheese boxes that had hockey cards on the back. These were limited edition boxes and cards and aren't really all that well known these days. And of course, it's really not easy to find these in unopened condition like this. But seriously, did they have to have Darren Poopa sign his nickname as Poops on the bottom? Yeah, this card is pretty notorious. I mean, you're talking like boxed macaroni and cheese, right? It's not exactly, the most healthy meal in the world. Well, what better way to describe the stomach adventure you're about to go on than the nickname Poops? Seriously, like, what were they thinking? And I mean, Poopa had his share of memorable cards up to this point. You would think that there would only be so many ways to photograph a goalie, but these card companies figured out ways to be creative. Actually, honestly, some of these cards do look pretty good. So as I've said before here, competition is really good for the sports card industry. We could use more competition, not less. But I think we should tone it down a little bit with the macaroni and cheese cards. I mean, Dominik Hasek's card has the word Dominator on the bottom. Most of the guys in this Masked Defender set have relatively normal nicknames, except for one, and it's a rather unfortunate nickname for a food product. Anyway, we've been through a lot so far, but number one really does have to take the cake, at least in my mind. This is the biggest head scratcher of them all. Seriously, I do not know what Topps was thinking when it greenlit this card. This is totally ridiculous. I mean, what better way to promote the 1998 NHL All-Star Game than by showing Wendy's founder Dave Thomas dressed as a goalie? This card was part of some collaboration of some sort between Topps and Wendy's. And from what I can tell, this card was the only card printed in this so-called set, if you can call it a set. So as you can guess, there's a story behind this, right? The story is that the NHL decided to team up with Wendy's to try to promote the NHL All-Star Game. So this is like the late 90s. If you remember, this is around when Fox was showing hockey in the United States. It used that stupid puck tracker because they thought that Americans didn't know how to watch the sport. Now, the NHL should have stopped focusing on these stupid gimmicks, and it should have focused on, labor relations instead, because the labor strife that came destroyed all of these efforts. And, photoshopping Dave Thomas onto a hockey card was certainly creative, I'll give you that. So personally, I think 1998 Topps looks really tacky, but this is what the average card looked like. That Dave Thomas giveaway card was not far off the mark, though it's clearly a really crappy Photoshop job. Like I said, the Topps design itself isn't great. There were better cards in 1998, that's for sure. But you can tell that they tried to make the Thomas card as realistic as possible. Now these cards are pretty rare, and you can get a whole $5 for one on eBay if you happen to have one. It's a cheap card, yeah, and it's cheap because nobody wants a card with freaking Dave Thomas on it. But it's insane, and it really is totally hilarious. Anyway, there you have it. There's my list. Those are the top 10 strangest hockey cards of all time, at least the ones that I could find. But what are the cards that I've missed, right? Surely you guys know about cards that are weirder than these. What would you put on your own list? Let me know down in the comments below. And final warning, kids, do not use your skate to shave.